Have you ever been so embarrassing to your family that they literally hid you from view? I stood at my sister Victoria's wedding venue, staring at the seating chart in disbelief. Table 27, behind the marble pillar, the only seat in the entire ballroom where no one could see me. My mother's masterpiece of exclusion. She'd even told relatives I was too busy with orders to attend. But what she didn't know was that the stranger who'd just walked in, asking for directions to his table, would turn this humiliation into the most public vindication of my life. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you are watching from. I'm Piper Myers, 32 years old, and this is the story of how a hidden seat at a wedding became the best thing that ever happened to my bakery business. The morning of Victoria's wedding, I arrived at the Grandview Hotel at 7 a.m., 3 hours before any other family member. In my car sat the three-tier lavender honey cake I'd spent 2 days perfecting, each sugar flower handcrafted, the fondant smooth as silk. This was my olive branch, my attempt to finally belong. "Oh, Piper," my mother's voice cut through the empty ballroom like a knife. "You brought something?" I lifted the cake box carefully. "It's a wedding gift for Victoria, lavender honey, her favorite from when we were kids." Mom's perfectly manicured fingers waved dismissively. "That's sweet, dear, but Victoria already ordered her cake from Le Bernardin. You know, the place with the Michelin stars?" She glanced at my simple sundress, her nose wrinkling slightly. "Perhaps you should have spent that time finding something more appropriate to wear." Victoria swept in then, radiant in her silk robe, surrounded by her bridesmaids. "Oh my God, Piper, you actually made a cake?" She laughed, that tinkling sound that used to mean we were sharing a joke, but now felt like glass shards. "That's so crafty of you. Remember when you used to make those easy-bake oven disasters?" "This is different," I said quietly. "I own a bakery now. I have clients." "Your little hobby cakes are sweet," Mom interrupted, steering Victoria away. "But this is a real wedding, Piper, with real professionals. Why don't you go help with the favor bags? That's more your speed." I stood there, holding my rejected cake, watching them fuss over the Le Bernardin delivery. 5 years of culinary school, 3 years building my business, and I was still the family failure playing with flour. 5 years ago, I'd been sitting in my corner office at Henderson and Associates, staring at my law school acceptance letter, Georgetown, full scholarship. Mom had already ordered announcements. "You're throwing your life away," she'd said, when I turned it down to attend culinary school instead. "Do you know what I sacrificed to give you opportunities? Your father would be ashamed." But Dad had been the one who taught me to bake, those Sunday mornings in our tiny kitchen, flour dusting his reading glasses. "Food is love, Pipsqueak," he'd say. "It's how we take care of people." The day I chose flour over files, Mom stopped introducing me as her daughter. At family gatherings, I became, "Oh, and Piper's here too," while Victoria's achievements got 20-minute speeches. Marketing director at 29. Engaged to David Smith, senior partner at his firm. The golden child who'd followed the script. Meanwhile, I'd built Myers Bakery from nothing. Started in my apartment kitchen, selling at farmers markets. Now I had a storefront in Brookside, the trendy district where people lined up at 6 a.m. for my croissants. My lavender honey cakes had a 3-week waiting list. Food bloggers called me the best-kept secret in artisan baking. But to my family, I was the embarrassment who chose minimum wage over law school. Never mind that I'd paid off my culinary degree in 2 years. Never mind that I employed 3 people and had just been featured in the local food magazine. In their eyes, I'd peaked in high school as valedictorian, then thrown it all away to play with dough. The irony was, I still loved them, still showed up, still hoped that one day they'd see me for who I actually was. "There's my beautiful bride," Mom's voice echoed across the ballroom as she adjusted Victoria's veil for the 100th time. Margaret Myers, 58, widowed young but never remarried. She'd built her entire identity around being the perfect mother raising perfect children. Well, one perfect child anyway. Victoria stood like a mannequin, letting Mom fuss. At 29, my sister had everything our mother deemed successful: the six-figure marketing job, the lawyer fiancé, the two-bedroom condo in the right neighborhood. She collected achievements like designer handbags, each one carefully chosen to impress. David's partners are all coming, Victoria said, scrolling through her phone. The Hendersons, the Walkers, even Judge Morrison. This has to be perfect. David himself appeared then, adjusting his cufflinks. He was handsome in that catalog way. Square jaw, perfect teeth, the kind of man who looked like success. He kissed Victoria's cheek carefully, avoiding her lipstick. "Your sister made it after all?" he asked, noticing me by the favor table. "Unfortunately," Victoria muttered, then louder. "Piper insisted on helping. You know how she is." David's eyes met mine briefly. There was something there, not unkindness exactly, but a careful neutrality. He was smart enough to stay out of the Myers family dynamics. "Nice to see you, Piper." "Mom had a special surprise for my seating arrangement," Victoria had whispered to her bridesmaids earlier, not knowing I could hear. "She's brilliant at managing situations." I understood then. I wasn't just the failed daughter. I was a situation to be managed, a problem to be solved. And Mom's solution was about to become crystal clear when the seating chart went up. I slipped into the bathroom and pulled out my phone, scrolling through the morning's orders. 6 birthday cakes for next week, an anniversary party for 50. Mrs. Smith from the coffee shop wanted her usual Friday croissants. My little bakery was booming, but I'd closed today for Victoria's wedding. Family first, even when family put you last. In my purse, I'd tucked 20 business cards. Pathetic? Maybe. But David's law firm partners were exactly the clientele I needed to expand. One corporate catering contract could change everything. I could finally afford that second oven, maybe even hire full-time help instead of part-timers. "I just wanted one day where I belonged in my own family," I whispered to my reflection, straightening my dress. It wasn't designer, but it was pretty. Soft blue, appropriate, carefully chosen to not stand out. Back in the ballroom, I heard Mom talking to Aunt Helen. "Oh, Piper, she's so busy with her little shop. You know how it is, working retail hours. She probably can't even make the ceremony." My stomach dropped. She was already laying groundwork for my absence, even though I was literally 20 feet away arranging favor bags. "But I saw her car," Aunt Helen said, confused. "Did you? Must be someone else's. That old Honda of hers barely runs." I wanted to march over, to scream that I was right here, that my Honda was paid off, that my little shop had a 5-star Yelp rating. But what was the point? Today was Victoria's Day. I'd smile, stay quiet, hope that maybe during the reception someone would ask what I did for a living. Maybe then I could pretend, just for a moment, that my family was proud of me. The ballroom filled with guests, and I noticed him immediately. Not because he was handsome, though he was, but because he looked lost. Tall, early 30s, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. He stood near the entrance, scanning the room with the focused intensity of someone looking for something specific. "Excuse me," he said to a passing server. "I'm looking for someone from Myers Bakery. I was told the owner would be here." My heart jumped. Someone was looking for me? At Victoria's wedding? The server shrugged. "Sorry, sir. You could check with the wedding planner." He pulled out his phone, frowning at something on the screen. Then he approached the registration table where Victoria's sorority sister Emma sat with the seating chart. "I'm trying to locate Piper Myers," I heard him say. "I understand she's family?" Emma laughed. "Oh, you mean Victoria's sister? Good luck finding her. Mrs. Myers says she's too busy working to attend. Apparently, Saturday is a big day for— what does she do again? Cupcakes or something?" "She owns Myers Bakery in Brookside," he said, his tone shifting slightly. "The one with the 2-month waiting list for custom orders." Emma's eyes widened. "Wait, that Myers Bakery? The one from the Food and Wine article?" He nodded, pulling out what looked like a business card. "Julian Blackwood. I've been trying to reach her about a business proposition. Someone mentioned she'd be here today." My hands trembled as I arranged another favor bag. Julian Blackwood. I'd Googled him once after reading about his company in a trade magazine. Blackwood Gourmet Distribution. 50 locations. The kind of partnership that could transform a small bakery into an empire. And he was looking for me. "Attention, everyone," Emma called out. "The seating chart is now posted. Please find your table numbers for the reception." I waited for the crowd to thin before approaching. The chart was elegant, gold calligraphy on ivory paper. I scanned for my name, starting with table 1 where Mom would sit with the immediate family. Not there. Tables 2 through 5, Victoria's bridesmaids and David's groomsmen. Tables 6 through 10, David's family and law partners. Tables 11 through 15, Mom's friends from the country club. My finger traced down, past cousins I hadn't seen in years, past Dad's old colleagues Mom still invited out of obligation. Finally, at the very bottom, in smaller script like an afterthought, Table 27, Piper Myers. I knew that table. It was the one they used for overflow, tucked behind the massive marble pillar that supported the ballroom's second level. The table where you put people you had to invite but didn't want to see. The table where waitstaff stored extra chairs during cocktail hour. Table 27 wasn't just far from family, it was deliberately hidden, I murmured, my chest tightening. "Finding your spot?" Mom appeared beside me, her smile razor sharp. "I thought you'd be more comfortable there. You know, away from all the lawyers and executives. They tend to talk about things that might go over your head. Plus, you can slip out early for your morning baking without anyone noticing." Every Myers relative, even my dad's senile brother who'd forgotten my name, sat at the VIP tables. But me? The daughter who lived 20 minutes away, who'd closed her business to be here? Hidden behind a pillar like a shameful secret. "Perfect," I said quietly. "Absolutely perfect." The reception began, and I made my way to table 27. The pillar was even worse than I'd imagined. Massive, ornate, completely blocking me from the main floor. I couldn't see the head table, the dance floor, or even the bar. Behind that pillar, I was invisible. Then he sat down and changed everything. "Is this seat taken?" I looked up to find the man from earlier, Julian Blackwood, standing beside me with a bemused expression. "This is table 27, I said. "You're probably at one of the VIP tables up front." "Actually, they didn't have a seat for me. Last-minute addition, apparently." He pulled out the chair. "Julian Blackwood, and you must be Piper Myers." My breath caught. "How did you—" "Your Aunt Helen pointed you out." "Well, she pointed to the pillar and said you were behind it." His eyes studied me with curiosity. "She also mentioned that your mother's been telling everyone you're too busy to attend." Through a gap beside the pillar, I could see Mom laughing with her country club friends. "Piper's working today," she was saying. "You know how it is with food service. No rest for the weary." "But I'm right here," I whispered. Julian followed my gaze, understanding dawning on his face. "Ah, I see. I'm sorry, Mr. Blackwood, but why were you looking for me?" He reached into his jacket, pulling out a business card. "I tried your lavender honey cake at the Morrison fundraiser last month. The one you donated? I've been trying to reach you ever since." The Morrison fundraiser. I'd donated a cake to the charity auction, never knowing who'd bought it. "I own Blackwood Gourmet Distribution," he continued. 50 high-end food boutiques across the Midwest. We're looking for an exclusive bakery partner, someone with unique flavors, artisan quality, the kind of products our clients can't find anywhere else. My hands shook. "You want to discuss business? Here? Now?" "Well, I was hoping to discuss it at a normal table where we could actually see the wedding." He glanced around our hidden corner. "But since we're both back here in exile, why don't you tell me why the most talented baker in the city is sitting behind a pillar at her own sister's wedding?" "I think you're exactly who I've been looking for," he added softly, and somehow I knew he wasn't just talking about business anymore. "Your lavender honey cakes made my investors forget the merger talk," Julian said, leaning back in his chair. 3 CEOs fighting over the last slice. That's when I knew I had to find you. I stared at him. You're serious? You're the CEO of Blackwood Gourmet? Guilty. He smiled, pulling out his phone to show me photos from the fundraiser. There was my cake, center stage at an event I'd never have been invited to. I've tried everything from Le Bernardin to La Durée. Nothing compared to yours. But I glanced toward the head table where David sat. Aren't you here for David's firm? David's my company's legal counsel. He mentioned his fiance's family owned a bakery, but he made it sound like… Julian paused diplomatically. Like a hobby? I supplied. His words were, Piper does some baking on the side. Julian's expression darkened. But Meyer's Bakery has been on my radar for months. You're not a hobbyist, you're an artist, which makes me wonder why you're hidden back here. Before I could answer, he stood up. This is ridiculous. You should be at table 3 with your family. No! I grabbed his arm. Please, it's my sister's day. I don't want to cause drama. He looked at where my hand touched his sleeve, then at my face. Piper, I've been in business 15 years. I know when someone's being deliberately sidelined, and I know talent when I see it. What exactly are you proposing, Mr. Blackwood? Exclusive distribution rights, your products in all 50 locations. But first… He sat back down, closer this time. I need to know if you can handle the volume, and if you're willing to stop letting people pretend you don't exist. Pretend to be my date, Julian said suddenly. I'll handle the rest. I nearly knocked over my water glass. What? Look, we're both stuck at the reject table. You're being hidden by your family, and I'm apparently too last minute to matter. But if we're together, we're not pathetic solo guests. We're a power couple choosing to sit privately. Through the pillar gap, I watched Mom guide another relative past our table without even glancing over. Like I didn't exist. Like I'd never existed. Why would you do that? I asked. Because talent deserves recognition. And because… He pulled out a folder from his briefcase, sliding it toward me. This is a real contract. 2 million in guaranteed orders annually. But I don't do business with people who hide in shadows. 2 million. Enough to expand, to hire, to finally prove that my choice hadn't been a mistake. For once, I chose dignity over invisibility, I said, meeting his eyes. Okay, let's do this. Julian smiled, transforming his serious face into something devastating. He took out his business card and wrote something on the back. Follow my lead. When the moment comes, just be yourself. What moment? Trust me. He signaled the server. Champagne for table 27, please. The good stuff. As the server left, confused why the hidden table wanted premium champagne, Julian turned to me. Tell me about your business, the real story, not the version your family tells. For the first time all day, someone wanted to hear about my actual life. Not the failure narrative, not the disappointment story, but the truth about what I'd built. Well, I began, sitting straighter. It started with my father's recipe book. Are you feeling Piper's frustration right now? I know many of you have experienced something similar with your own families. Before we see what Julian does next, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Your support helps me share more stories like this. And comment below. Have you ever been deliberately excluded from a family event? Let's continue. Blackwood Gourmet started with a single store, Julian explained, his eyes lighting up as he talked. Now we're in 50 locations across 5 states. High-end boutiques where people pay premium for authentic artisan products. That's incredible, I said, genuinely impressed. What's incredible is your lavender honey cake. Do you know how many pastry chefs I've auditioned? Hundreds. They all taste like trying too hard. He pulled out his phone, showing me photos of gorgeous storefronts. But yours? It tastes like someone actually cares. His phone buzzed. Yes, Marcus? Good. Prepare the contracts. The exclusive partnership ones. Yes, today. He glanced at me. I'll need them within the hour. Contracts? I whispered. You haven't even tried my full range. I've had enough. Your summer berry tart from the Riverside Festival, the chocolate souffle from that charity bake sale. I've been tracking your work for 6 months, Piper. I noticed his briefcase was slightly open, legal documents visible inside with exclusive partnership agreement printed at the top. My heart raced. 6 months? But why didn't you just come to the bakery? I did. 3 times. Each time there was a line out the door and you were covered in flour, completely focused on your craft. I didn't want to interrupt. He smiled. Plus, I wanted to see if the quality was consistent. It exceeded expectations every time. Mr. Blackwood. Julian. Julian, this is overwhelming. A partnership with you would change everything. That's the point. He looked toward the head table where my family laughed and toasted. The question is, are you ready to stop being the family secret and become the family success story? Before I could answer, his phone buzzed again. The contracts will be here in 30 minutes. Whatever happens next, Piper, remember, you earned this. Oh my God, Piper, there you are! Victoria's voice dripped with false sweetness as she approached with her bridesmaids in tow. We were just wondering if you'd left already, to prep for tomorrow's baking. She stopped short when she saw Julian. Her perfectly made-up eyes widened. Oh, Mr. Blackwood, we didn't know you were here. Her voice pitched higher, the way it did when she was caught off guard. Why aren't you at table 6 with David's partners? I'm perfectly comfortable here, Julian said smoothly, his hand moving to rest casually near mine on the table. Your sister's been telling me about her business. Victoria's laugh tinkled like broken glass. Her little bakery? That's sweet of you to listen. Piper loves talking about her hobby. She turned to me with mock concern. I hope you're not boring Mr. Blackwood with your recipes. Actually, Julian said, I'm the one who sought her out. Meyer's Bakery is exactly the kind of artisan operation Blackwood Gourmet partners with. The bridesmaids exchanged glances. Victoria's smile froze. Partners with? Victoria repeated. You mean professionally? Is there any other kind? Julian's tone remained pleasant, but there was steel underneath. Victoria recovered quickly. How wonderful! Piper, why didn't you mention you knew Mr. Blackwood? Her eyes accused me of social climbing. Though I'm surprised you'd do business at my wedding. We're not, I started. Just getting acquainted, Julian interrupted smoothly. Your sister's quite remarkable. I can see why you'd want her close by at your wedding. He gestured to our hidden table with just enough irony. Victoria's jaw tightened. Yes, well, family is so important. Anyway, Piper, Mom's looking for you. Something about the favor bags? She swept away, her entourage following, but I caught her whispered words. Why is he sitting with her? Within minutes, Mom materialized at our table like a perfectly coiffed storm cloud. Piper! Her voice was sharp enough to cut glass. What are you doing? I sent Victoria to get you for the favor bags. The favor bags are done, Mom. I finished them an hour ago. She barely glanced at me, her attention laser-focused on Julian. Mr. Blackwood, I'm Margaret Myers. I'm so sorry you've been seated back here. There must have been some terrible mix-up. No mix-up, Julian said calmly. I chose to sit here. Mom's smile faltered. But surely you'd be more comfortable with David's partners. They're all dying to meet you. Let me arrange. Mrs. Myers, I don't abandon my date. The word date hung in the air. Mom's eyes darted between us, calculating rapidly. Date? She laughed, the sound brittle. Oh, Mr. Blackwood, you don't have to be polite. I'm sure Piper cornered you about her little baking project. She doesn't understand that successful people don't want to talk shop at social events. Actually, I approached her, Julian said, his tone cooling. I've been trying to reach Piper for months about a business opportunity. Months? Mom's voice cracked slightly. That's impossible. Piper would have mentioned. Would she? Julian asked quietly. To family who hides her behind pillars? The silence stretched taut. Mom's face flushed. I don't know what my daughter has told you. She's told me nothing. But actions speak louder, don't they? Like seating your daughter where no one can see her, or telling guests she's too busy working to attend her sister's wedding. Mom straightened, her society smile snapping back into place. Well, I can see Piper's found herself a champion. How nice. She turned on her heel. Don't keep Mr. Blackwood too long, Piper. I'm sure he has important people to meet. After Mom retreated, Aunt Helen slipped over to our table, glancing around like a spy in enemy territory. Piper, sweetheart, she whispered, pulling up a chair. I've been looking everywhere for you. Your mother said you couldn't make it. I've been here since 7 a.m., Aunt Helen. Her weathered face creased with concern. I brought something. She pulled a small wrapped box from her purse. It was your father's. I've been saving it for when you needed it most. Inside was Dad's old recipe card holder, the brass one he'd kept his secret recipes in. My throat tightened. He'd be so proud of your bakery, Helen said softly. I tried your lavender cake last month, snuck into your shop when I was in town. It was better than anything at this fancy reception. Your aunt seems to be the only one with sense here, Julian observed. Helen studied him shrewdly. You're the Blackwood fellow. David mentioned you might come. She lowered her voice. Good. Someone needs to see what Margaret's been doing. This seating arrangement? It's cruel, even for her. Why does she do it? Julian asked. Helen sighed. Piper reminds her of their father. Same spirit, same refusal to follow the prescribed path. Margaret couldn't control him either. That's not an excuse, I said quietly. No, it's not. Helen squeezed my hand. But maybe it's time to stop waiting for her approval. She looked meaningfully at Julian. Especially when recognition is coming from better places. She left as quietly as she'd come, but not before whispering, That cake you made? Victoria's guests are saying it's better than the official one. The staff has been sneaking tastes in the kitchen. Julian raised an eyebrow. You brought a cake anyway? Hope is a dangerous thing, I admitted. The reception was in full swing when the MC tapped the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, in just a few moments, we'll begin our speeches celebrating Victoria and David. Julian's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then stood abruptly. The contracts are here. My assistant just arrived. He looked down at me, something decisive in his expression. It's time. Time for what? To stop being invisible. He pulled out a sleek leather folder from his briefcase where his assistant had discreetly delivered it. This is a $2 million annual contract, Piper. Exclusive distribution rights for Myers Bakery products across all Blackwood Gourmet locations. My hands trembled as I looked at the papers. It was real, all of it. Before the official speeches begin, the MC continued, would anyone else like to say a few words? Julian raised his hand from behind the pillar. I would. The MC squinted toward our hidden corner. I'm sorry, sir, I can't quite see. That's the problem, isn't it? Julian said, his voice carrying despite not having a microphone. He stepped out from behind the pillar, and I saw him palm a wireless mic from his pocket. He'd come prepared. People can't see what's hidden. The spotlight operator, confused, swung the light toward table 27. Suddenly, Julian was illuminated, and standing beside him, so was I. Before the official speeches, I have an announcement, Julian said, his CEO voice commanding attention. The entire room turned, all 200 guests. Victoria's smile began to fade as she recognized who was speaking. Mom half rose from her chair. David leaned forward, his lawyer instincts clearly sensing something significant was about to happen. Ladies and gentlemen, Julian began, walking slowly toward the center of the room, his hand extended toward me in invitation. Sometimes the best things are hidden in plain sight. Sometimes the most valuable treasures are the ones we overlook. He clicked on the wireless mic fully, his voice now filling the ballroom. My name is Julian Blackwood, CEO of Blackwood Gourmet Distribution, and I'm here tonight not just as a wedding guest, but as a business partner. The room held its breath. Victoria's perfect smile had completely vanished. Julian stood in the center of the dance floor, every eye locked on him. The spotlight followed as he turned back toward table 27, toward me. "I'm here tonight not just as a wedding guest, but as a business partner," he announced, his voice filling the ballroom through the wireless mic. Gasps rippled through the crowd. I saw David's law partners lean forward with interest. Victoria's perfectly painted lips parted in shock. For those who don't know me, I'm Julian Blackwood, CEO of Blackwood Gourmet Distribution. We operate 50 high-end specialty food boutiques across the Midwest. He paused, letting that sink in. For the past 6 months, I've been searching for an exclusive bakery partner, someone whose products could define our brand. Mom's face had gone pale. Victoria gripped David's hand so tight I could see her knuckles whiten from across the room. "I found that partner," Julian continued, walking back toward me. The spotlight followed, illuminating table 27, the hidden corner suddenly the center of attention. "Behind that marble pillar sits the most talented baker I've encountered in 15 years of business." He extended his hand to me. "Piper Myers, owner of Myers Bakery. Would you join me?" My legs felt like water, but I stood. The moment I stepped out from behind the pillar into the light, the entire room could see me. Really see me, for the first time all day. "This woman," Julian announced, "created the lavender honey cake that had 3 Fortune 500 CEOs fighting over the last slice at the Morrison fundraiser. Her summer berry tarts have a 2-month waiting list. Food and Wine magazine called her the best-kept secret in artisan baking." Victoria's smile hadn't just frozen, it had shattered completely. "I'd like to announce our newest exclusive partner," Julian declared, pulling the contract from his leather folder and holding it high. "Myers Bakery, run by the talented Piper Myers." The gold-embossed Blackwood Gourmet logo caught the light. Several business executives in the crowd leaned forward, recognizing the significance. "The same Piper Myers sitting behind that pillar," Julian continued, his voice taking on an edge. "The same Piper Myers whose family told everyone she was too busy working to attend her own sister's wedding." Audible gasps echoed through the ballroom. Heads swiveled between me, Margaret, and Victoria. Aunt Helen, bless her, started clapping slowly from table 12. "This contract," Julian held it higher, "represents a $2 million annual partnership. Her products will be in all 50 Blackwood locations by next month." "2 million?" someone whispered loudly. David's law partners were pulling out phones, clearly Googling Blackwood Gourmet's value. One of them, Mr. Henderson, whistled low. "That's a Fortune 500 partnership." Julian walked back to me, offering his arm. "Ms. Myers has built something extraordinary, from a small storefront in Brookside to an exclusive partnership with one of the country's premier gourmet distributors. All while being told she was a failure for choosing passion over convention." Mom stood abruptly, her chair scraping. Victoria looked like she might faint. "Her creations will be in all 50 Blackwood locations by next month," Julian repeated, making sure everyone heard. "Because real talent doesn't need to sit at the VIP table. It creates its own table." He turned to me, speaking directly now, though everyone could hear. "Piper, would you like to say something to your family?" The microphone was in my hand before I could think. 200 faces stared at me. This was it. The point of no return. The microphone felt heavy in my hand, but my voice came out steady. "Thank you, Julian." I looked directly at my mother, then Victoria. "I came here today at 7 a.m. to help set up. I brought a wedding cake I spent 2 days making. I arranged every favor bag. I did it all because I love my family, even when they hide me behind pillars." The room was so quiet you could hear the catering staff frozen mid-pour. "Mom, you told everyone I was too busy to come. Victoria, you seated me where no one could see me. But the truth is, I've been here all along, building something you couldn't see because you were too busy being embarrassed by my choices." David's business partners were already approaching our spot, business cards in hand. One called out, "Ms. Myers, do you handle corporate events?" "She does now," Julian answered smoothly. Margaret finally found her voice. This is highly inappropriate. This is Victoria's wedding. You're right, I said calmly, which is why I sat quietly behind that pillar. But when someone offers you a $2 million contract in public, it would be rude not to acknowledge it. Judge Morrison from David's firm stood up. Margaret, you told us Piper couldn't make it, that she was working at her little shop. I. There must have been a misunderstanding, Mom stammered. No misunderstanding, Aunt Helen called out. You hid her deliberately. We all saw the seating chart. Victoria's maid of honor whispered audibly, $2 million? Piper makes that much? She will now, Julian said simply. Talent doesn't need a VIP table to shine. The spotlight remained on us as business card after business card appeared in front of me. The hidden daughter had just become the most interesting person in the room. Margaret rushed across the dance floor, her heels clicking like gunshots. What are you doing? You're ruining your sister's wedding. I was hidden behind a pillar, Mom. How is standing up ruining anything? I kept my voice level, professional. Victoria appeared beside her, tears threatening her waterproof mascara. You couldn't let me have one day? One perfect day? You had every day, I replied quietly. Every family dinner where Mom praised your job while calling mine a hobby. Every holiday where you got the spotlight while I got the kitchen duty. I gave you all those days. This is about attention, Victoria spat. You've always been jealous. No, I cut her off. This is about business. Mr. Blackwood approached me. Should I have turned down a $2 million contract to protect your feelings? The same feelings that seated me behind a pillar? David appeared, placing a hand on Victoria's shoulder. Perhaps we should discuss this privately. There's nothing private about hiding your sister at your wedding, Julian interjected calmly. 200 people saw that seating chart. Margaret's face flushed crimson. Mr. Blackwood, you don't understand our family. I understand enough. You hid your daughter because she chose a different path. You told people she was too busy to attend when she was here at 7 a.m. helping set up. You rejected her wedding gift because it wasn't from a Michelin-starred restaurant. My job, Mom, I said, holding her gaze. The thing you call a failure, it just made me more successful than anyone in this room. You planned this, Victoria accused. You brought him here to humiliate me. I didn't even know he'd be here, but you know what? I'm glad he was, because someone finally saw me when my own family made me invisible. Julian stepped forward, his voice cutting through the tension. I should clarify something. I've been researching Meyer's Bakery for 6 months, not because of this wedding, but because Piper's work is exceptional. He turned to address the crowd. I knew she'd be here today because David mentioned it during our last meeting. What I didn't know was that her own family would hide her. That's not, Margaret started. Mrs. Myers, I have the emails. Julian pulled out his phone. 3 months ago, I contacted you about your daughter's bakery. You replied that Piper was going through a phase and that I should look elsewhere for serious partnerships. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Mom's mouth opened and closed like a fish. You tried to sabotage her? Aunt Helen stood up, incredulous. Success isn't about the table you sit at, Julian continued. It's about the value you bring. Piper built a thriving business while her family pretended she didn't exist. That takes more strength than any law degree or marketing position. He looked at me. Real family doesn't hide you when you don't fit their image. David cleared his throat. I knew about the contract negotiations. Julian mentioned them last week. Victoria whirled on him. You knew? I thought it would be a nice surprise, David said weakly. I didn't know about the seating arrangement until tonight. The surprise, I said quietly, is that anyone in this family finally has to acknowledge what I've built. Judge Morrison approached. Ms. Myers, that lavender cake in the kitchen, you made that? Yes. It's extraordinary, far better than the official cake. He handed me his card. My wife runs charity events. We'd love to discuss catering. The truth was fully revealed. The family failure was actually the family's success story. I made a decision that would define everything that came after. Thank you all for your interest, I said into the microphone. But this is still my sister's wedding. Mr. Blackwood and I will return to our table now. Instead of joining the VIP section, I walked back to table 27 with Julian. The hidden corner had become the most sought-after spot in the room. Within minutes, a parade of David's colleagues made their way to our pillar. Business cards piled up like expensive confetti. Mr. Henderson from Henderson and Associates, the firm where I'd once worked, didn't even recognize me until he saw my name. Piper? Administrative Piper? You own Myers Bakery? The very same. But you were supposed to go to law school. I went to culinary school instead. Best decision I ever made. Meanwhile, Margaret attempted damage control at the main table, her laugh too bright, her explanations too elaborate. Just a misunderstanding about the seating. You know how wedding planning gets. But the damage was done. Every whispered conversation included the words, "behind the pillar" and $2 million on. Victoria had to continue hosting with a frozen smile, while guests kept glancing toward table 27. Her perfect wedding had become the setting for my professional triumph. Table 27 suddenly became the most popular spot, Aunt Helen said, pulling up a chair beside us. Funny how that works. The catering staff, who'd been sneaking tastes of my rejected cake all evening, began recommending it to guests. The bride's sister made an even better one, I heard one server tell Judge Morrison's wife. It's in the kitchen if you'd like to try it. The hidden daughter was hidden no more, and the consequences rippled through every conversation, every toast, every forced smile from the head table. Can you believe what just happened? Piper finally got the recognition she deserved. But we're not done yet. There's still the aftermath to deal with. If you're enjoying this story of family drama and sweet vindication, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to like this video. Now, let's see how the family handles this new reality. The perfect facade crumbled piece by piece. Aunt Helen, emboldened by the revelation, stood up at table 12. Margaret, why did you tell me Piper couldn't come? I saw her car in the parking lot at 7 a.m. Other relatives began speaking up. Why was Piper behind the pillar? Didn't she make Victoria's birthday cakes growing up? $2 million? And you called it a hobby? Mom's country club friends exchanged knowing looks. Mrs. Wellington, the club president, said loudly enough for all to hear. Margaret always said Piper was struggling, but $2 million doesn't sound like struggling to me. The perfect wedding wasn't so perfect anymore, Cousin Sarah whispered to her husband, loud enough for Victoria to hear. Victoria's college friends were Googling Myers Bakery on their phones. Oh my God, look at these reviews! 5 stars on everything! There's a 3-week waiting list. Her maid of honor, Jessica, approached our table sheepishly. Piper, I'm so sorry. Victoria told us you were too embarrassed about your job to sit with the family. We had no idea. What else did she tell you? I asked calmly. That you couldn't afford a proper wedding gift. That's why you made a homemade cake. Jessica's face reddened. But the catering staff says your cake is incredible, better than the $3,000 one from Le Bernardin. David's mother, who'd been seated at table 2, made her way over. Piper, dear, I had no idea you were back here. Margaret assured me you were seated with family. This is my family table, apparently. I gestured to the pillar. She looked horrified. At my son's wedding? This is inexcusable. She turned toward the head table where David sat. The look she gave him could have frozen champagne. Margaret cornered me near the bathroom, away from the crowd. Her perfect composure had cracked, mascara slightly smudged. How could you do this to your sister on her wedding day? Mom, you chose to hide me. I chose to stand up. You always were your father's daughter, she said bitterly. Never thinking about appearances, about what people would say. Dad would have been proud of what I built. Your father died working in that hardware store. Is that what you want? To die covered in flour instead of having a real career? Dad died happy, doing what he loved. You're alive and miserable, doing what looks good. I kept my voice steady. Which is the real tragedy? Her hand raised slightly, trembling, then dropped. You've ruined everything. Victoria's perfect day was built on pretending I didn't exist. That's not perfect, Mom. That's cruel. You don't understand what I sacrificed. You're right, I don't, because you sacrificed having a real relationship with me for the appearance of a perfect family. And you got neither. Julian appeared in the doorway, not interrupting but clearly present. Mom noticed him and straightened. This isn't over, Piper. Yes, it is. I'm done begging for a seat at your table. I have my own table now. She walked past Julian without acknowledging him. He waited until her heels clicked away before speaking. You okay? I'm better than okay. I'm free. We returned to find David waiting at table 27. Piper, I owe you an apology. I knew how they treated you. I should have said something. David, knowing and doing nothing makes you complicit. But that's between you and Victoria now. He nodded slowly, understanding. His wedding day had become a revelation about the family he'd married into. The photographer appeared, clipboard in hand. Family photos in 5 minutes. Victoria materialized beside him, her smile brittle as glass. Actually, we'll just do immediate family, parents and siblings. But Piper is your sister, the photographer said, confused. Of course she is. Victoria's voice pitched high. I meant, including her, obviously. The irony was thick enough to cut. After hiding me all day, now they had to include me in the permanent record. At the photo session, Mom tried to position me at the edge, easily croppable. The photographer, who'd heard the gossip, deliberately placed me center-left, right beside Victoria. Smile, he commanded. The flash captured the truth. Victoria's forced smile, Mom's rigid posture, my calm confidence, and David looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Now one with extended family. Relatives who'd ignored me all day suddenly wanted to stand near me. The successful one should be in the middle, Uncle Robert called out, pointing at me. Mom's face went purple. Between shots, Victoria hissed, Are you happy now? Everyone's talking about you instead of my wedding. They're talking about why you hid me. There's a difference. Judge Morrison approached David during a break. Son, I have to ask, did you know about the seating arrangement? David's silence was answer enough. I see. The judge's tone cooled considerably, and you said nothing. The momentum was unstoppable now. Every conversation, every photo, every moment pushed toward an inevitable reckoning. The Myers family secret was out. The daughter they'd deemed a failure was worth more than all their pretenses combined. Next photo, the photographer called. How about one with the business partners? Mr. Blackwood and Ms. Myers in the center. Victoria's perfect wedding had become my professional showcase. Victoria cornered me in the bathroom during the reception's final hour. Her perfect makeup had given way to smeared mascara and red-rimmed eyes. You win, okay? You win. Are you happy? This isn't about winning, Victoria. Isn't it? She laughed bitterly. You got your big moment. Your vindication. Everyone knows poor Piper was mistreated. Everyone knows the truth. That's different. She slumped against the marble counter. Do you know what it's like being the perfect one? The one who has to succeed because you didn't? I did succeed. You just couldn't see it. No, you don't understand. When you chose baking over law school, Mom transferred everything onto me. Every expectation, every demand. I had to be perfect enough for both of us. Her voice cracked. I never wanted to be a marketing director. I wanted to teach. Elementary school. But teachers don't make 6 figures. That was your choice, Victoria. Was it? When Mom threatened to cut me off if I didn't take the corporate job? When she said Dad would be ashamed if both his daughters were failures? You could have stood up to her, like you did, and get hidden behind pillars? She met my eyes in the mirror. I'm not brave like you, Piper. I saw what she did to you and I was terrified. So I became exactly what she wanted. Perfect on paper doesn't mean perfect in life. You still chose to hide me today. Because if you succeeded without following her rules, what did that make me? The coward who gave up everything for her approval? She wiped her eyes. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just, I wanted you to know. I've been jealous of your courage since the day you chose that culinary school. Courage doesn't mean it didn't hurt, Victoria. I know, and I'm sorry. For what it's worth, your cake was beautiful. Better than the one we ordered. She left before I could respond, returning to her reception, to her perfect life, that suddenly didn't look so perfect anymore. The reception continued its awkward dance toward conclusion. I collected 12 business cards from David's colleagues, each one representing a potential corporate contract. The stack felt heavier than my father's recipe box, not with weight, but with possibility. Julian stayed beside me, not as a knight in shining armor, but as a genuine partner. He introduced me to connections, offered advice on scaling production, and most importantly, treated me as an equal. You know, he said quietly, most people would have made a scene, stormed out, made it all about them. That would have proved Mom right, that I'm impulsive, unprofessional. Instead, you handled it like a CEO. He smiled. Want to know a secret? I came here hoping to sign you, but I didn't expect to admire you. The band announced the last dance. Victoria and David swayed mechanically, their fairy tale wedding now a cautionary tale about the price of perfection. Mom sat at the head table, abandoned by her country club friends who'd found urgent reasons to leave early. The hidden daughter had emerged, but the cost was written on every face. Some victories don't feel like winning. Margaret's carefully constructed image unraveled completely when Mrs. Wellington, the country club president, stopped by the head table. Margaret, dear, I had no idea Piper was so successful. You always made it sound like she was struggling. There's been some confusion. No confusion. I heard everything. You hid your own daughter because she didn't fit your image. Mrs. Wellington's voice carried the weight of social judgment. That's not the kind of behavior we encourage at the club. Other society mothers pulled away, their children suddenly too busy to chat. The perfect mother facade had shattered, revealing something uglier underneath. Mom sat alone, finally understanding what she'd lost. Not just a daughter, but the reputation she'd sacrificed everything to build. Her friends would whisper about this for years. Remember Margaret Myers, hidden her successful daughter at the wedding? She looked across the room at me, surrounded by business contacts and genuine well-wishers. For the first time, I saw her see me. Really see me. Not as an extension of her ambitions or a disappointment to manage, but as the woman I'd become despite her. The recognition came too late. Julian and I stepped onto the balcony for air. The city lights twinkled below, a reminder that life existed beyond this ballroom. Why did you really help me? I asked. And don't say it was just about the business. He leaned against the railing, considering. My father was a baker, small shop in Chicago. When I started Blackwood Gourmet, my board said I was too emotional about food, too invested in quaint partnerships. They wanted mass production, not artisans. What changed? Nothing. I ignored them. Built the company my way. But I remember what it felt like to be dismissed for caring about craft over profit. He turned to me. When I researched you and found out how your family treated you, I recognized that same dismissal, talent being hidden because it didn't fit someone else's definition of success. So this wasn't about rescuing me. No, it was about recognizing you. There's a difference. He smiled. The contract is real, by the way. No strings attached. You earned it with your work, not because of tonight. And the date thing? That was just good timing, and maybe a little bit of wanting to see their faces when they realized what they'd thrown away. At 10 p.m., I made my decision. The reception would continue for another hour, but I was done. Not storming out, not making a scene, just quietly, professionally done. I found Victoria cutting the Le Bernardin cake. I'm leaving, I said simply. Of course you are. You got what you wanted. No, I got what I earned. There's a difference. I handed her an envelope. This is for you. Inside was a note and a key. The note read, "The lavender honey cake is in the kitchen's walk-in cooler. I made it because I love you. Even when you don't love me back. The recipe was Dad's. You loved it when we were kids, before we learned to be strangers. P. Piper. Try the cake, Victoria. Remember when we used to bake together, before Mom convinced us one of us had to fail for the other to succeed? I collected my business cards, said goodbye to Aunt Helen, and walked toward the exit with Julian. No dramatic exit, no slamming doors, just a calm, dignified departure from a family that had chosen appearance over authenticity. Behind me, I heard Victoria ask the catering manager to bring out the other cake. Later, Victoria would tell me what happened after I left. She stood alone in the kitchen, tasting the lavender honey cake I'd made. Each bite was a memory. Our father teaching us to fold batter, summer afternoons making cookies, the birthday cake I'd made her when she turned 16 and Mom forgot because of a country club event. The Le Bernardin cake sat abandoned on the serving table, professionally perfect but soulless. My cake, the rejected one, had love baked into every layer. "This is incredible," the head caterer said, sneaking another taste. "Better than anything we've served tonight." Victoria read my note again. Before we learned to be strangers. The words hit harder than any confrontation could have. She looked around the emptying ballroom. Her perfect wedding, perfectly orchestrated, perfectly hollow. The sister she'd hidden had left behind something more valuable than any wedding gift, proof that love persists even through betrayal. David found her there, crying over a cake made by the sister she'd pushed away. "She's right, isn't she?" Victoria said. "We chose to be strangers." "You can choose differently tomorrow," David offered. "But some choices can't be undone with a single tomorrow." 3 months later, I stood in my new bakery location, 2,000 square feet of gleaming equipment and possibility. The Blackwood Gourmet contract had changed everything. 5 full-time employees, including 2 apprentice bakers who reminded me of myself at culinary school, a waiting list that stretched 3 months. Success was sweeter than any cake I'd ever made, I told Julian as he helped me hang the new sign. Myers Artisan Bakery, a Blackwood Gourmet partner. The partnership was strictly professional at first. Weekly meetings about production schedules and quality control, then coffee to discuss new flavors, then dinner to celebrate our first million in sales. Somewhere between spreadsheets and soufflés, professional became personal. "You know what I love most about this?" Julian asked, watching my team work. "The profit margins?" He laughed. "The fact that you did this yourself. I just opened a door. You built everything that walked through it." My phone buzzed. Another text from Victoria. "Can we talk?" 3 months of texts. I hadn't answered yet. Mom had sent one formal letter, still making excuses wrapped in an apology that wasn't really an apology. "You'll have to deal with them eventually," Julian said gently. "I know, but on my terms, in my time." The morning rush began. Regular customers mixed with Blackwood Gourmet clients coming to see where their products originated. I moved through my kitchen with confidence, no longer the girl hidden behind the pillar, but the woman who'd built an empire from flour and determination. My father's recipe box sat on a shelf above my desk, his brass nameplate polished bright. "Food is love, Pipsqueak," he'd said. I'd learned to love myself enough to stop begging for crumbs from people who'd only offer them from behind pillars. I finally responded to Victoria. "Coffee, Thursday, 2 p.m., my bakery." She arrived 10 minutes early, designer bag clutched nervously. The girl who'd hidden me behind a pillar looked smaller in my space. "It's beautiful," she said, taking in the bustling bakery. "Thank you." We sat at a corner table. She ordered a lavender honey latte. I had black coffee. "I left David," she said suddenly. I raised an eyebrow. "Not because of the wedding, because of what the wedding revealed. He knew how Mom treated you and said nothing. If he could watch that and stay silent." She stirred her latte. "What else would he stay silent about?" "I'm sorry." "Don't be." You opened my eyes. She pulled out an envelope. "I'm teaching now. 3rd grade. Mom's furious, but for the first time in my life I don't care." Apologies without change are just manipulation, I said carefully. Are you changing or apologizing? Both, hopefully. She met my eyes. I want my sister back, but I understand if that door's closed. It's not closed, but it's not wide open either. Coffee once a month. We'll see where it goes. She nodded, accepting the boundary. Mom's letter had been different. I'm sorry you felt hurt, she'd written. Not, I'm sorry I hurt you. The distinction mattered. I'd sent back a simple response. When you're ready to acknowledge what you did, not how I felt about it, we can talk. Aunt Helen, meanwhile, had become a regular customer. Every Friday, she brought friends from her book club, proudly telling everyone I was her niece. Real family shows up, she'd say, loud enough for anyone to hear. Blood just means you're related. My new normal included boundaries I'd never had the courage to set before. Family dinners became coffee with Victoria once a month. Holiday obligations became, I'll send a card. The guilt that used to consume me when I said no had faded into something more manageable, a twinge rather than a flood. I learned that family isn't about blood, it's about respect, I told my therapist during our monthly session. Yes, I'd started therapy. Processing a lifetime of emotional manipulation doesn't happen overnight. Julian and I were taking things slow, real slow. He'd seen me at my most vulnerable, which made trust complicated. But last week, when he showed up at 5 a.m. to help with a massive order, flour in his expensive suit laughing at my shocked expression, I knew this was different. You don't have to prove anything to me, he'd said over dinner last night. I already know who you are. The bakery had become more than a business. It was a testament to choosing yourself when everyone else chooses against you. My employees were young women who'd been told their dreams were too small, too impractical. I mentored them the way I'd wished someone had mentored me. Mom had tried visiting once. She'd stood outside for 20 minutes before leaving. Victoria told me later that she'd cried the whole drive home. She's starting to understand what she lost, Victoria had said. Understanding and changing are different things. The Blackwood partnership had opened doors I'd never imagined. Food Network wanted to feature the bakery. Publishers were asking about a cookbook. But the real success wasn't in the contracts or the recognition. It was in the peace of no longer needing anyone's approval but my own. Standing in my office, I looked at the photo from Victoria's wedding, the one the photographer had sent me privately. There I was behind the pillar, barely visible, but if you looked closely, you could see Julian beside me, and something else. I was smiling. Not the forced smile from the family photos later, but a real smile. The smile of someone who'd just been handed their future. Behind that pillar, I found my power, I said to the empty room, then laughed at myself for talking to photos. The truth was more complex than any single moment of triumph. Yes, I'd built something amazing. Yes, I'd been validated professionally. But the real catharsis came from accepting a harder truth. My family's love had always been conditional, and no amount of success would change that. I'd spent years believing that if I just achieved enough, they'd finally see me. But Margaret Myers only saw reflections of herself or disappointments to manage. Victoria only saw competition or comfort. They loved the idea of me they'd created, not the person I actually was. Accepting that freed me in ways the Blackwood contract never could. My phone rang. A young baker from the South Side, struggling to get her business off the ground. I'd posted on social media about offering free mentoring sessions. I can meet you Tuesday, I told her. Bring your best recipe and your biggest dream. This was my real success, turning pain into purpose. Every young woman I helped was a younger me, getting the support I'd never had. Every boundary I maintained was proof that self-respect matters more than family approval. The catharsis wasn't in the revenge or the money. It was in the freedom to finally stop auditioning for love that was never going to come. 1 year later. My bakery's anniversary party buzzed with life. Employees, customers, fellow business owners, and chosen family. Aunt Helen commanded a corner table, regaling anyone who'd listen with stories about my father. Julian moved through the crowd, as comfortable with my regular customers as with his business associates. The bell chimed. Victoria stood in the doorway, hesitant, holding a gift bag. Our monthly coffees had slowly rebuilt something. Not what we'd had as children, not what we should have had as sisters, but something real and careful and honest. I nodded, a small smile. She entered, still uncertain of her welcome but trying. Some tables aren't worth sitting at, even if they're family, I told her last month. But some people are worth building new tables with. She'd understood. We were building something new, plank by plank. Mom hadn't come. She'd sent a card, still unable to fully acknowledge her actions, but inching toward accountability. Maybe someday, maybe never. I'd made peace with both possibilities. Speech, someone called out. Someone. I stood on a chair, looking at the faces around me. A year ago, I sat behind a pillar at a wedding, hidden from view. Today, I stand in my own space, surrounded by people who see me, really see me. Success isn't about proving wrong the people who doubted you. It's about proving right the person who believed in you, yourself. The room erupted in applause. Julian caught my eye, raising his champagne glass with that smile that still made my stomach flip. Later, as the party wound down, I stood alone in my kitchen, Dad's recipe box in my hands. "We did it, Pipsqueak," I whispered. Outside, life continued. Inside, I was exactly where I belonged. At my own table, on my own terms. Finally, fully visible. Thank you for joining me on this journey from behind the pillar to center stage. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe and share it with someone who needs to remember their worth. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family who didn't value you? Share your story in the comments below. And remember, you don't need anyone's permission to shine. Until next time, this is Piper, reminding you to choose tables where you're celebrated, not hidden.